inside of any organization, nobody starts off on day one saying this place sucks. Doesn't happen, right? On day one, people are genuinely excited to be there. They want to make an impact. They want to contribute. They want to find out what they're working on, the tools that they're going to be using. Like, they're really excited to be there. Nobody shows up on day one going, damn it! Like, what am I doing here? It doesn't happen. So day one, people are already excited to be there. Something happens then over time where an employee's satisfaction starts to go down. And then the company here does an annual employee engagement survey, right? Once a year, sometimes once every 2 years, sometimes once every 3 years. And they collect data and they say, well, we scored a 62. That sucks. How do we get to like a 95? And they typically turn to HR and they say, hey guys, you see that number? You got to raise that by like 30 points. And the HR, and by the way, they say, and do it quickly. Do it quickly and as cost effectively as you can. But we need that score up. And so HR comes together and they say, all right, well, I don't know, anybody got ideas? And then somebody says, yeah. Hot yoga on Tuesdays. And they introduce hot yoga on Tuesdays. And guess what? Temporarily, the satisfaction goes up. Then it goes back down. And then HR comes together again and they say, all right, what about free food on Fridays? That sounds good. Let's do that. And guess what? Satisfaction goes up again. And this is how companies view employee engagement around the world. Even in the Bay Area, right? I mean, I live in the Bay Area now, and I see this all the time. You talk to companies and you say, do you have an employee engagement program? And they say, yeah. And I say, what do you do? Oh, we got great gyms, free food, you can bring your dog to work, you get haircuts. What the hell are you talking about? Right? This is how they view it. And this is a very, very dangerous way to build your company, because what it does is it teaches your people to be there because of things that they get. Imagine for a minute you're in a relationship with somebody simply because you get nice things. What happens when one day you don't get the nice thing? You leave. Right? You leave. There's a concept in psychology known as the hedonic treadmill, which basically states that we as humans are very good at adapting. And the reason why this doesn't work is because the new cool thing that you introduce, the perk, the free food, we get used to it. And so for a couple of months, it's cool and it's interesting and it's intriguing. And then one day you show up to work and you're like, free food, whatever. There's a dog. What else you got? What else you doing for me? And so you keep having to think of like new things to do. Right? Oh, well, we'll massage you at work. Well, you get a nap pod. What do you want? Just tell me what you want. You can have anything that you want. And we're building these Pinocchio's islands, which are, quite frankly, a little bit out of control. But if you look at the tenure inside of these companies, it sucks. Right? It's terrible because of this. And one of the other fascinating things that I find is that when I interview these companies and I say, well, why are you doing any of this stuff? And they say, we want to empower our people. And I always say, well, guess what? On day one, your employee is empowered. Right? On day one, they show up empowered. You disempower them through rules and bureaucracy and policies and just outdated workplace practices and a hierarchy. You strip them of any power that they have. And then, after they're beaten down, you tell me you want to empower them again? By giving them yoga? Right? It doesn't make any sense. So how about instead of disempowering our people?
Do you want to hear something really crazy? 96% of the people who watch videos on this channel are not subscribed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It'll literally take you 1 second, and you'll get notified when more videos just like this one are available. Now, let's get back to the content.
We keep them up here in this level, right? Why don't we keep them empowered to begin with instead of trying to figure out how to empower them after we've already beaten them down? So this is how most companies around the world view employee engagement programs, and it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. It's not sustainable, it's not scalable, it's not practical. So what is it that some of the world's leading organizations have figured out? So if this kind of approach doesn't work, then what does work? There's a psychologist by the name of Gilovich, I actually had him on a podcast that I did last year. And he did some really cool research where he looked at how is our satisfaction level impacted depending on if we invest in a physical good or if we invest in an experience. Right, so imagine you buy an iPhone versus go skydiving, something like that. And so what he found is that if you invest in a physical good, what starts to happen over time is your satisfaction goes down. Over time, the satisfaction goes down. But guess what happens if you invest in an experience over time? Your satisfaction goes up. So when we look at the world's leading organizations, that's what they've figured out. How do we make it feel like when employees start working here, they didn't just buy something, they invested in an experience? And that is ultimately what I really want you guys to think about, right? How do we make it feel like when employees are working for us, they've bought into an experience? They didn't just sign some paperwork. It's not just a transaction. They are here because of an experience. Right? And I think this really ties nicely into this concept of the value of the person, right? All the stuff that you guys are thinking about and doing, love, dignity, respect, it makes complete sense. It ties very, very well into that theme. So this is what Thomas Gilovich figured out. Right? This is what some of the world's leading companies have figured out. How do we make it feel like it's an experience when employees actually start working here? So if employee engagement is basically this idea of distracting employees from the reality of what it's like to work there by giving them perks and benefits and kind of cool, fun stuff, then what does employee experience actually mean? When I think of employee experience, I think of changing the core workplace practices inside of your company around your people. Now, it doesn't mean that perks are bad. It doesn't mean that cool offices and free food and it doesn't mean this stuff is bad. But it's not a strategy. These might be little bonuses. These might be little things that you add on top. But really what we need to do is change the core workplace practices inside of our company, how we think about work. And now for a while, I always used to think that employee engagement was at odds with employee experience, and they're different, and employee experience is taking over employee engagement, and it's like this whole transformation. But these things are actually very related. The big problem that I think we've seen so far is that employee engagement is this thing that sits in the middle. And we want this outcome, this ROI here. And for a long time, we've just been very obsessed with measuring and influencing engagement, but we don't spend enough time trying to figure out what comes here. What comes before we do that? How do you create the engaged workforce? You can't just measure and influence the output of something. You have to figure out what the cause is. An engaged workforce is the effect. The cause is experience. The cause is changing the core workplace practices. That gets you an engaged workforce. That gets you an ROI. And we've just been neglecting this piece. Right? We've been neglecting the experience piece. We've been very just focused on the engagement piece, which doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work like that. So again, changing the core workplace practices in your company around your people.